Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest, talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh!, and get to know a little more about each person I talk to. This is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 16. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Stephen Trifanowski, Jesse Cotton, Team Samurai X1, Doug Zeef, Cody Angeloff, Farfa, and many more. My guest for this week has a YouTube channel and is an up-and-coming Yu-Gi tuber and duelist with over 8,200 YouTube subscribers, 3,800 Twitch followers. That's all you guys out there watching. And endorsed by YCS and WCQ champion Cody Angeloff. It's Pac. Pac, man.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Glad to have you on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. I've been actually watching your channel and like the podcast that you've been conducting. I really like them. I think they're really, really good content. And each of those interviews have like something unique to provide. So hopefully you guys get to learn a little bit something about me and everything. But yeah, definitely humbled to be here, man. Thank you for the invite.
Hey, man, absolutely, man. I mean, you were completely endorsed by Cody Angeloff. He told me all about you, and then I looked into you more. And I said when we were like chatting a couple days ago, I said, I've been watching you ever since, man. And I've been impressed by the way that you've been evolving ever so quickly since you started this game, in July of 2019, and already you've got like two nice victories behind you already. I know you've won a pro play tour in Orlando with Altergeist, and then just recently, this past Sunday, you won New York Comic Con with Infernoble Knights. So that already, man, like the growth I'm seeing from you is pretty amazing. I mean, when I started Yu-Gi-Oh, it took me about 2 years for me to actually just be like competent, not good, just competent. And and the way that you're going on right now is like you might be on your way to really being one of like the most like fastest growing player that I've ever seen in my life, and I've been in this game since like 2003, man. So you've been really impressive, man. I've been really enjoying the stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely got into the game like a lot quicker than like I guess the typical route of like a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, because I guess like everyone has their transition. Like they start off like playing casually, right? Because if you like hear the stories of many like great Yu-Gi-Oh players now, right? Like Jesse Cotton, for example, first started playing with his like father, if I remember correctly, because I talked with him before.
Yes,
and he was just kind of playing like very very basic casual Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And it slowly transitioned into competitive. Whereas when I started the game, I had probably about 2 to 3 weeks of casual Yu-Gi-Oh, if even that, and then I just jumped right into competitive scene. Like I went to locals, like I played right away. So it was definitely a different path.
So what got you into Yu-Gi-Oh to start with, anyhow?
Yeah, I originally started playing Yu-Gi-Oh started getting into Yu-Gi-Oh as a way to like make money. My original goal was to like vend and make some side hustle. Like I was in college and I had extra time. I had a friend in the space who like reached out to me and said this is a good investment opportunity, and I had some extra income from like internships and just like work. I've been working like my entire life, and I just had like money left over. So I figured let's put that towards something, because I wasn't really doing anything. I was pretty much wrapping up my studies with university, and I was preparing to start working full time. So at this point I was like, let's make a little bit of money and have some fun, and what better way than to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, since my friend recommended it to me, and it's a game that I've been watching since I was a kid. I've watched like the original 5Ds, GX, but I haven't really watched any of Astro or like Arc V. I don't really like that kind of stuff just because it feels so like, I don't know, weird to me. Like I like the original stuff a lot better. And I play a lot of trading card games like prior to Yu-Gi-Oh. So I figured this would be like it would be a good jump. But then after I started vending, like buying like multiple cases, right? I then went into like, I figured the best way to invest into a game, or if you were to invest in anything, or if you were to like dump like sums of money into anything, right? The first thing you need to do is like a lot of research into that, right? Like you don't want to just be like, I'm gonna throw down $1,000 or like $2,000 or $3,000, or like even $500 or like $100 as something that you don't know anything about, right? And so my first step was, I figured the best way to understand the market is to understand the meta game. And so like that's when I started teaching myself the game, because I was like, I remember I was looking at these cards. I'm like, why is Imperm so expensive? Why are like Ash Blossom so expensive, right? Cards that like I never really seen in the anime or anything like that. but I knew that they were expensive for some reason. I just needed to figure out what. And I wanted to understand what moves markets. Like, why are cards expensive? Why are this card like not expensive? And I figured having that understanding would make me a better investor. But then as I started learning to play the game, I just fell in love with it. And I was like, damn, I came into Ven and I ended up playing more than anything else.
So you said that you like would watch the TV series back when you were younger. How come you decided to play Yu-Gi-Oh now instead of way back then when you did have an interest in Yu-Gi-Oh? At least the show then.
I mean, like, I didn't really have like the most money like growing up, so like I didn't want to like just drop like whatever it was to like play the game. Like it just wasn't a thing for me, and I mean, it just wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. So that's why. And now that I have like a little bit more money and things like that, I wanted to just invest in this from both like a I guess time investment and like money investment. And I've been really enjoying it. This game's like a lot of fun. I didn't expect to be in the game this long. I figured it would just be something I play for a little bit, then I get bored of it. Kind of like Hearthstone or any of the other TCGs I've played. But yeah, it turns out that I really, really enjoy it. So
yeah, because again, about a year and a half now, you've been in this game now, and already you've got like two pretty cool credentials already on top of that, man. So let's talk about one of them, for example, because you just won the Sunday of the New York Comic-Con, and you got yourself a nice little giant card there to go along with it.
Yeah. I got that. So my motivation for playing was because I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/pack_fish_TCG. I'm sure it'll be in the link in the description box below, but I wanted to have a giant card in the back of my stream. I figured it'd be really cool. I kind of got inspired by Farfa.
Yeah.
So shout out to Farfa. But I saw that in his stream, he had a nice looking tour guide. And I was like, yo, that's sick. Like, I want to have something in my background too. Like I guess like the thing that I usually have is like a bunch of my mats that like mean something to me. Like, so if you were to go on my stream, you see I have like my PPG mat, which is the mat that I won from the PPG Nats. I got my luxury mat, which is my team mat. I got a Sam mat or TSX1 mat is this mat that Sam gave me when I went to Vegas with him. And then I have like the Triff mat, which is like obviously like Triff was my other teammate. So yeah, it was just like that was like my motivation. But and I also like wanted to play like with real cards again. But yeah, the event was like crazy. It was essentially 6 rounds, and I like a lot of really good players entered. Right? You have like people like Asala with like multiple tops. You had Paulie Aronso who won Saturday. Like, you just had like a lot of really good players, and I don't really shy away from those things. I like playing the good players. Like, I like playing against like the people that are like considered like the best in the game, because I find out that whether I win or lose, I learn the most from that. And I'm always looking to like continue like to develop as a player. And that's like the best way.
How did you decide on your deck choice going into that event?
Yeah, if you know anything about my channel, I've been putting out a lot of content about Infernobles. What the thing that I usually do whenever a new set comes out is I always look into that archetype, and I never like call like an archetype trash until like I literally tested it myself. And in testing, like, I really, really enjoyed this deck. And it was just one of those things that I just had fun with. And I always advocate this, right? Like, whenever you play a deck, you could play the best deck. That's true. Like, I think like a lot of people would argue that Dragon Link is the best deck just because of it has like technically like better extenders than Infernoble. Like the extenders and like the starters in that package, in that deck, just lets you play so much. Like, it's a very, very strong deck, and its board is very oppressive. But for me, like, I just don't have fun playing Dragon Link. Like, it's very boring for me, to be quite frank. And so Infernoble, like a deck that has multiple lines of plays, a deck that never ends on the same end board, like it just, and the creativity you can get with that deck is why I gravitated towards it. And it was a deck that rewards you for playing better, and increasing like the learning curve. And it was one of those decks that, like, if you were to give Dragon Link to anyone on the street right now, they can probably pick it up. But if you give Infernoble to anyone right now, like, you'll see them more often than not like mess up the combo, or not even execute it properly. And I think that's why like it's so important that I play a deck that I have a lot of fun with, a deck that develops me as a player. and like those were like my criterias for like why I wanted to play Infinite Nobles. And of course, like I put out a lot of content on Infinite Nobles, so I wanted to like show my subscribers and the people watching my channel that like with practice, you know, you can win I guess these events, like for a giant card that's worth like I think I got offered already $1,200, but it's like to show people that like, you know, you can do really well and compete at a high level with like some of the best players in the game.
And I noticed that you don't have your prize card in your Twitch background. I know it's the Egyptian god slime. That's
yeah, it hasn't come yet. Yeah, it hasn't come yet.
Hasn't...
They're gonna ship it out today. They say they're gonna give me the tracking today.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
And hopefully it won't take too long because I know you're in the New Jersey area that's pretty much adjacent to New York City, which is where you were born and raised, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I was born and raised in New York City, and yeah, they're gonna ship it. Funny enough, they're actually not shipping from New York City. I believe, ironically, they're actually shipping it from California.
Oh, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's Core TCG, the locals, that's gonna be shipping it.
Okay, got it. It's so what made you decide to go play that event?
Yeah, I just play a lot of remote duels, and it was pretty exciting because I know a lot of good players were going to be playing in it, and it was also just nice to like play with real cards again. It was also like the first official Konami sanctioned remote duel event since the remote duel invitational that obviously Cody played in. So it was like for me one of those things where like this is an official Konami tier 2/tier 3 event, and I'm just like, yo, this is awesome. Like like you have to submit a real deck list. It just felt real, and obviously it's never a substitute for real life gameplay, but it just felt nice to be able to play again, I guess with real cards and have it be like a sanctioned event.
Yeah, and I completely am with you on that sentiment because the occasional time weekly I might have a friend or two over to come to my house and we'll have some duels or whatnot, just relax and chill. Because I also do miss playing in real life just as much as everybody else right now because of this whole pandemic that's been happening. So I'm sure it's been a nice, refreshing change of pace for you that you got to play with real cards again in an actual event and everything like that with top level competition. Because I saw some of the competitors that were there and they're no joke as well. I feel like I might be able to. I don't know if I would be able to hold my own if I went to that event. So knowing you being in this game for not even 2 years, like what were your expectations going into that event?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't really like. I don't get nervous. Like when I play like good players and stuff, I know a lot of people would get nervous, but like I frankly don't. Like I remember even at the PPG in Nationals in Orlando, like I was playing against like I think what is it, top 8 all the way up. I was playing against Kamal, Ruben, Pararanda. I was playing against Michael State. I played against like some of the best players in the game, but I'll be quite frank. At the time, I didn't even know who they were. Yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm just playing another dude. Like, I don't really care. Like those factors don't really affect me." And obviously, as I grew within this space, like I don't get nervous. So I was just honestly, whoever I was playing against, I was kind of ready. I was like, I've been playing in the metagame for quite a bit, or at least in this format. So I knew like cards that people can have. Like, I can like guess what back row they have based on the deck they're playing. I can like figure out the top decks, the tech choices, just because I've been playing in the format and streaming and testing this format so much that like there's no deck that surprised me. So I was just kind of like excited, to be honest. Like I didn't really have any expectations. Like I felt really confident about my deck. But there was one thing where I submitted my deck list really early on Wednesday, but then what happened was I was gonna change my deck list because technically at any event, when you submit your deck list, you can like change it as long as before the event started. But then I submitted my list early because I just wanted to make sure I was registered because it was an event that was going to fill up really fast and I didn't want to be like excluded. But then I guess the day before the event, I was like making changes to my list and they like didn't let me make those changes. So I was playing with a list that, although I was comfortable with, I just felt like it could have been more optimized. And I talked about that in my deck profile too, that like I may not have played like the optimal list that I wanted to, but I just played with the cards that I was dealt, literally. So I made it work, so it's okay.
So you played against so much fantastic competition in it, and even though you didn't know that you did, like, do you feel like now that you're kind of calm when you go against a big name, just because you've went against some of the best, and you kind of know what to expect from them, and that's what kind of keeps, and you know that you can keep up with them is a reason why you can remain so calm when playing against big names.
Yeah, I think like to be quite honest, I think when you play against anyone, like you can play against, let's say, Jesse Cotton, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you play really well and you know his deck really well and you know your own deck really well, the only thing that you're gonna lose to is gonna be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the time. Like you don't really lose if you really like do your self analysis and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find out more often than not your games and your losses are not to they're not to like the other person like top decking or sacking you, which can happen,
Mm-hmm.
but the majority of them, if you really like find the root cause of it, is mainly due to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's either you misplayed or you played incorrectly, or you made the wrong read.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the majority of the time. And so when I play against like really good players,
Mm-hmm.
it's essentially a battle of like who misplays the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like the way I look at it. And for someone who like do a lot of self-analysis and reflection and look at my own misplays a lot, I just basically try to not make those misplays again.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, like, they're just like I win. And it's like as simple as that. I mean, obviously there's a lot more intricate lines of plays, and when you play a different deck, like it gets a lot tougher for a bunch of reasons. But at the end of the day, it's literally a challenge between like who misplays more and who can stay more calm, like or like calmer. Like that's all it really is.
I could definitely agree with you on that, because when I go to my locals, I know a lot of players, like the more casual local players, kind of get nervous when they play around me. So they try to be a little bit tricky. They try to do something completely different, try to catch me off guard. But it goes so far away from like the fundamentals that they just get tripped up in their own self. I'm a terrible overthinker myself, so I kind of do the same thing when I go against other players. Like sometimes I try to, like outfox them or outwit them, and then all of a sudden I stumble upon my own feet. So I really believe that you're right when you're saying, it's keeping to yourself and stick to the fundamentals of what you know.
Yeah, and like I mean, if you watch any of my streams, I always advocate like it. I had a testing stream where I called it like know yourself, know your enemy, and I made this the title of my stream because in order to beat the best players and like the best decks in the game, you need to understand how their deck works. Like it's never like Yu-Gi-Oh is not a game where you play by yourself, and that's a very important distinction, because other TCGs, I'll be quite frank, you do play by yourself. Like Pokemon, you are playing by you're actually playing by yourself. There's zero interaction on the opponent's turn, and like they just can't do nothing. They literally watch you and play. And so in the game where like it's interactive between two players, you have to essentially just make sure that you just have to like oh shoot, I think I lost my train of thought. But it's essentially as an idea of like just making sure that you stick to the game plan, as Triff would call it, unironically. And that's like that goes a long way. It's like a psychological game too, almost, because
it really is.
There's like the bluffing becomes a huge component. Reading what cards your opponent might have is really important. Like there's just so many factors that it's outside of like the game of Yu-Gi-Oh itself that I find really fascinating with this game.
And that's a big reason why I love doing like in-person duels as opposed to playing online, because there's a lot more psychological tell, I feel, when you play in real life. For example, like if I see someone kind of like set like one spell trap card, then maybe pick it up and then set it back down again, they're thinking about it, and then maybe set a couple more. I usually take that first card as like, okay, that's the one that they want to set for sure, and that's the chainable one. I usually don't want to target that one with Twin Twisters, say, for example. And it's those little things that help get that like extra advantage, which is so key nowadays, especially if you want to play at high level events. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I wholeheartedly agree with you in that concept. And I took up golf about a couple months ago, and I've been playing it a lot recently. And the big thing they say about yourself is that the biggest enemy is yourself. And the way you said it with Yu-Gi-Oh, again, I completely agree with you on that. So I'm really glad you touched up on like the psychological aspect, because I'm a big advocate for that part of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like, if you really think about it, like, I do it a lot, because I think that's one of the reasons why I play really well, is because of my bluffs. Like, I remember I played against V, Paisano. He's another Yugi tuber as well as a like streamer. And I remember playing against him. I completely bricked. Game 3, I bricked.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like I was playing Infernos. I bricked. I drew cards that were dead. Double tax. What else? Red Lair, which was my only summon, and then I had Monster Reborn and like Smoke Grenade. Like completely bricked. What I did was I set 4 and I passed. And then on his end, right? He was looking at my back row. He's like he was so contemplating whether or not I had Imperm Nib, and it made him play really bad. Like he was playing really weird. Or like not bad, but like he was playing awkwardly because he was trying to play around everything I had. Because he was thinking in his head, I made him think that like I had impermanence set. Because he's like, even if I diff bluff, at least one of those 4 cards had to be an imperm. At least, right? The reason why I said 4, it could also be like I was trying to play against I was trying to like make him, even if he sniped 1 off of like a Rorodon or like a Charles effect to pop 1, like he might miss, and then Imperm Nib is always live. Like I struck like that fear in his head, and then he was playing very awkwardly just due to that thing. And even though I still lost the game because like never punish, but it was enough to like make him play very awkwardly. And if I did have Imperm Nib, he would have like actually lost the game. Like which was the craziest part. Like if I did have the Nib, he like would have actually lost. And it's those type of things that like is really, really important because like I said, man, Yu-Gi-Oh is a 2-player game, you and your opponent in front of you. And so you have to know their mannerisms, you have to know their deck, you have to like know your deck. Like there's so much you need to know. And that's why like I find like Yu-Gi-Oh to be like such a hard game, but such a rewarding game to learn.
Did you find that there were any differences doing remote duels as opposed to playing in real life with other people when you were doing that Comic-Con?
Yeah. The biggest difference is like picking up their graveyard and like not like to slow play, of course, for all the memes or memers out there, but like it's for reading effects.
Yes.
Like especially for like I play a lot of rogue decks, so like I'll be honest, like no rogue decks surprise me. Like if you're out there playing Plunder Patrol or out there playing Prank Kids or like Pierce it all, like I'm honestly not really surprised. Like I took the time to play a lot of rogue decks, so like those decks don't trip me up. But for people who are not as familiar, right, like if you're playing like Satellar Knights and you started just playing now, you don't know what Deltaros does. Like to be quite frank, right? So you need to be able to pick up their card and read. And so like having your opponent read out the card to you, like it's really hard to absorb that information. So like for me, like I'm someone who prefer to read it and then it like internalize it. Whereas it's really hard to do that in a remote duel setting. Like you have to then ask them to read, or you have to like go on your computer and then type it, and that wastes like a few like minutes. And it's just like so much like you have to do. So it's like really, really, I guess, annoying in that aspect. The other aspect is, of course, like you don't really get to see their mannerisms. And yeah, like cheating can happen in remote duels, but I've never really caught anyone doing it. And I think most people have really good sportsmanship, so it's like fine. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a good experience.
And what was your reaction to yourself when you were able to win the Comic-Con?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly was like really happy because I found out that like one of my friends, Hanko Chow, he wrote an article and he's talked about how like I fear not the one man that practiced like 10,000 kicks, but the one kick 10,000 times. And that really resonated with me because this was a deck that I like knew really well. Like I was playing it so much, and I don't really make any of the misplays that I originally make when I first picked up the deck because I played it so much. I know it so like well, and to see that like I won my games because of like good technical play, and those games that you win are super rewarding because it shows that like you outwitted your opponent and you outskilled your opponent, and those are really rewarding because it lets you win unwinnable games. Or it's like, and it's what makes like really good players like great players, right? Like you'll see that like when you play against like Kamal Crooks, for example, like he can get evenly matched for everything, but he doesn't scoop. And it's because like he knows that like his opponent can still misplay or like can still not play perfect. And just to make a small reference to like chess, for example, there's like this rule saying the worst moves possible rule. And it's a rule that says that when you hit time, the winner is person who like who I guess the loser is a person who ran out of time. And the reason they make this this rule is it can be, so sorry, let me repeat that. If it goes to time, and the person runs out of time on the clock in blitz chess, the person who ran out of time doesn't necessarily always lose. The main reason being because of this rule called the worst possible move, which means that can the opponent, who still has time left, is it possible to have a checkmate? And it assumes your opponent makes all the worst plays. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's very similar because your opponent doesn't always make the optimal plays. We're humans. We make mistakes. We're not robots, right? And like capitalizing on those misplays and capitalizing on those errors is like what like really defines like, you know, a good versus a great player.
The punishing is a huge thing, which when I try to teach some of the lesser players that try to learn from me, is that like, I always try to show them like what can your opponent do? Like you can just look at their board and say, what's the move that they could potentially do on you just by looking at the board and assuming you don't know anything in their hand or they have no hand. Can they defeat you? Right. That's like a great thing. It's just being able to analyze the board for one thing. And then also, you know, in time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so much more important than ever now, knowing that we end on the face. So I feel like some people like strategically scoop because of time now, because they want to be able to get like give more to their opponent to turn first before they get their only battle phase like that. So it's getting really strategic at this point, even for time. And I love that chess metaphor that you gave as well. It kind of applies really well here now with the time rules that have changed. We've had it for over a year now, almost 2 years, I believe now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I started playing when the timer was implemented. So like I was never like phased by it. I definitely lost a couple of games due to time, and that's when I learned like, oh, it's better to scoop earlier. And like in unwinnable situations, then yeah, you should. But I think there are like couple scenarios where like you wait for them to make, like, let's say you get evenly matched for like 5 cards and you have 1 card left. The reason why you wouldn't scoop there is in the situation, like you wait for them to make the first move first. If they like make a move that is gonna pretty much like win them the game, then you just scoop, right? If they're already on their way to combo, you scoop. But if they play around your back row because they're really afraid of that one last card you kept off evenly matched, then they might play very conservative and like not play optimally. Like they might do something that's different from the norm, and because of that, you get an extra turn to draw, and that draw could be crazy. And like, I mean, if you draw really bad, like I guess you can scoop there and not play. But like, it's just essentially the idea that you wait for them to make that move first, and then you make the decision whether or not to scoop. Like it's very systematic. Like you make the decision. Like you don't scoop because your opponent tells you to. You do it because you know like this is the best move you can do at this point.
And I know that some people, I've had a lot of people that have scooped to me when I kind of believe I'm not really in the game. Like I think like if they make this one crack on my board, then I'm probably going to be in a really hurting situation. So like, for example, if I get hit with an evenly matched, I want to see what my opponent does next. If they don't have much of a follow-up, I'll still be in the game because I've still won several games before being hit with evenly matched, but being able to play out of it afterwards. It's happened twice to me before. So it really, of course, it's all about the interaction. But I've had so many people scoop to me because they think the game is over because they think I have a much strong hand that was backed by a good Nibiru or something like that.
Right. And it's just I mean, it goes back to the idea of being tilted, right? Like I mean, there's a lot of cards that tilt you in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? You get Mystic Mind, Dark Ruler, evenly matched, you get Lightning Storm, Feather Duster. Like it's just so many cards that can like just tilt you because you got like quote unquote sacked. But the thing is, like, you kind of just have to like stay cool when things like that happen. Like and then that's like what's really, really important. Like it's just kind of like accepting that that's part of the game and they drew it. But like in some form or another, like there's a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that can be designed to have counterplay. So like if you know that they have Dark Ruler or Mystic Mind, if you're playing a combo deck, you should have outs to it, or at least like make negates that are spell and trap related, right? Or if you can only make one, then hold it for like the last thing. So it's just being strategic with like the board you set up based off of like your deck and knowing the meta game and what people like, what you lose to, like understanding like everyone understands their win condition, but it's like understanding like your lose condition, like what do you lose to, so like you play around it. And I give like a really good example of this in like my Infinite Noble video where I show a hand where I have Neospace Connector, but then I have a lot of Fire Warrior extenders in my hand. So the thing is, would you go normal summon Ogier, which is a Fire Warrior starter, but it's multiple card combos, or you go normal summon Connector. And then the idea is that like if you go normal summon Connector and you get hit with Ash, you can't get to 2 warriors. But if you go normal summon Ogier and they Ash it, you can extend with a Fire Warrior extender and then play past it. And it's the same concept there. I mean, obviously like in a vacuum, most people don't Ash the Ogier, but like in it lets you get to at least Isolde, and then you can play past it off of Isolde at least. And it's just like those small things that like I believe matter a lot.
I love what you said about Mystic Mind, for example, when you're playing a combo deck, because I had a very similar experience. But before this pandemic happened, I was in the OTS championship. I was in the finals against my friend who was playing like topological turbo, and I knew that he was maining super polys. He was going to side into Duck Ruler No Mars, and I was playing Spiral. So I knew that I can't do the normal Spiral board in order to beat him because he's ready for it, and he also has sphere mode. So what I did was I did a Nightmare Griffin and Appaloosa, but I also was able to set a pointer of the Red Lotus because of Nightmare Griffin and whatnot. So I made that play, and I didn't have 3 monsters on board, so he couldn't sphere mode me. But I had the utility wire set, and I could use Rescue to bring back Double Helix and get it ready for whatever interruption I need to. So I love that you make that thought. You also have to prepare for those power cards that are going to come at you, and that was an example that I used for myself, and I'm sure that you've also noticed that as well. Like, of course, if I play Chaos Thunder Dragon. If I get hit with a Mystic Mind first turn, I'm done. I have no outs to it. So when I build a board, I want to be able to stop it right off the bat, kind of like the way that you described when you get hit with like an Evilly Match or when a Mystic Mind would come up.
Yeah, and that's like just part of the game and understanding like the cards within the meta. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like none of this stuff is easy. It all sounds really good in theory, but like whether getting tilted, right? Because I mean, it is pretty tilting. You get completely Mystic Mind, but it's just like if you know these are things that you get tilted to, or these are things you're losing to, then you can understand that there are ways to like these are fixable. Like these are like things that you can like change. And that's what's important. Like you can change like the board you make. You can change the way you sequence your plays, but obviously you can't change his draw. I mean, maybe I guess if you drone him, but like you can't change his top deck. Like if he does it, he does it. So what you can do is change how you play to like combat that. And I think that's like important.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing in Yu-Gi-Oh as well is just having accountability for yourself in the games you play. I mean, there are times where you can't do anything about the current situation at hand, but it also goes to your deck building, your side decking, and how do you prep yourself for knowing what your own weaknesses are and how do you combat against them to be able to win as many games as you possibly can.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%.
So let's talk about the evolution of how you started out in this game, like really kind of late, let's say, just because you started just last year, and then all of a sudden you've kind of propelled yourself. So how would you attribute like the quick success that you've had so far in this year and a half that you've played the TCG?
Yeah, so I guess I would say that I improve really quickly because I am really open-minded and I take criticism really well. Like I think that's like the attribute that it's really hard to see within either the Yu-Gi-Oh community or like even beyond, because a lot of people, like Cody and I were having this conversation, a lot of people in Yu-Gi-Oh are like egomaniacs. like they go to events like flexing, like showing Supreme and all that stuff, and like they're just like and then they're like, yo, this deck is correct, like you gotta play 3 of this, you gotta play exactly this, you gotta play this. Like they make like basically like they make absolutes in a game where there is no absolute, right? Like, and I find that like really frustrating because I think that this game has, like, I think it's a really fun game when you innovate and you try new things and you develop as a player. But there's a lot of players that are in the current meta game that are just kind of like stuck to one school of thought. And I think that's like why you have players playing for like 10 years and like never improving, because this is all they know and this is all they want to know. And that's like, I guess that's one way to like approach it too. But there's a lot of like inherent flaws with that if you just look at it objectively, right? It's like I think the Allegory of the Cave, it's like the really good philosophical, I guess it was told by Socrates, I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
but I think Plato, but Plato was the person who's I wrote it, I believe. But essentially it's the idea that like this guy is chained to this wall, right? And he sees his own reflection. And so all he knows is his reflection. He thinks they're real people. Like and that's all. All right, if I understand correctly,
I believe that they were actually shadows. There were
shadows. There were shadows.
Yeah, because they were discerning what is actually real, and because he only sees shadows, That's what he believes is real. I'm a philosophy major, by the way, so I know this
Oh,
inside
okay.
and out. So I know exactly what
Okay,
you're talking
perfect. Yeah. So like the shadows, like he's so convinced by it, but all he has to do is just, I mean, I guess break free from the shackles. And that's all. If he just goes out and just sees like the sun, he'll realize that the sun is causing the shadow. Like they're not real. And but then so the analogy here is that like a lot of people just see the shadows. Like this is all they see. But all it takes, man, is you just step outside and see like the sun in like a weird sense. Have you guys catch the analogy there? And yeah, no, that's like the way I feel like that I improve so much is because like I come into the game with no bias. Like I when I try to like break decks or like read new cards or build decks, etc., like I don't have a certain bias or I don't have a certain tendency. Like this is the right way to do it. Like this is the only way to do it, right? Like and I think it's because of that I take very unique approaches in like my deck building, like the combos I come up with, and etc. And I think that's I definitely would say like that helps a lot, and also just losing a lot. I mean, like when I first started, I played a lot of luxury gaming online tournaments, and those were really critical too because I got to play some of the best players in the game before even going to a real event or like my first event, and so that was kind of nice too because I was already playing like these good plays. I was already seeing what the good plays were. I was seeing the optimal plays like by these really talented players, and like just watching them and playing against them, I learned a lot. And like even though like I would lose, I never felt like I was actually losing.
And just to touch on the Allegory of the Cave real quick, because you just touched on my my philosophy major. That's what I studied. And the ironic thing about that is like once you go outside and see the sun, like the Allegory says, this could be this may not be the most real thing that we're seeing. There could be something that goes beyond what we're on Earth, and it goes beyond. That's what like the aethers is, what the heavens is. Maybe that's even more real. That's just the irony in that whole
allegory. Like the irony is like what is like real, right? Like and I guess that's that's like the whole philosophy behind it, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, that was. That's the whole point of the Allegory is really like how can we discern what is real? And sure enough, it's not the cave. Maybe it's not even the Earth, but that's as far as like humans would know for now. But you just tugged on my philosophy brain there, so I just had to throw it out there just for that.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad it resonated with you.
It did. My girlfriend's she hates it when I talk philosophy. I don't do it often, but I sometimes just do it just to spite her for fun, just to bother her. She just hates it. So it's just kind of funny just to talk about this, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh as well. So I just thought I'd throw that there as a little random piece of trivia for anyone who felt like having a philosophy lesson out there. I'm pretty sure everyone's already sick of it already. We'll get back to Yu-Gi-Oh now.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, I like it. I like it.
So man, so I know that you did some. I believe you did some training or like some tutoring with Cody, yeah.
With Jesse.
Oh, with Jesse.
I did his Duelist Academy Patreon when he was first starting it up. And yeah, that was really cool. I definitely would say that like I said, when I say I'm open-minded, right? Like I listened to Jesse's words and I took what I thought was like made sense to me, right? Like so his approach to deck building, I like take inspiration from that, but at the same time I take inspiration from like Pat Hoban, where I take inspiration from Cody, like the way he decks was. I take inspiration from a lot of players and I use a lot of what they have to say into the deck building, even though they conflict sometimes. I try to like match what they think or how they think based on what I know and what they've talked to me about. And then I apply that to like the deck building itself, which is I think pretty neat because I think like they're all right in their own way. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think they're all right in their own way, and it's just determining. It's like kind of like figuring out where the shoes, like kind of like Cinderella, where the shoe fit, right? Like kind of like or where the slipper fits, and it's kind of like just, and that's what the whole idea of what being open-minded means. It's like taking. It's like listening to people, like really listening to what they have to say. Instead of saying they're right or wrong, see the applications in which it's right, see the applications in which it doesn't make sense, and then come to your own conclusion. And I think that's what's really, really important.
Yeah, because every single deck is played differently. Everyone plays the deck in a different way, and not so much everyone's play style is also different as well. I mean, some people are better with control decks, some people are just better with full blown combos, some people are just better with maybe like Trolley Burn, Mystic Bind kind of stuff. But nonetheless, like, everyone has their own play style. So yeah, I can agree with you that there's not like one absolute correct style. It's whatever the shoe fits. I mean, I remember way back this before you were like when Bujins were out, like I tried Bujins, not my play style whatsoever. Like they were a decent and solid deck, like one of the top decks at the time, that like behind Dragon Ruler, but it wasn't my style. And I preferred playing Dragon Ruler or any other deck aside from Bujins because it wasn't me. And the same thing with this format too. Everyone's got their own style, and right now we're seeing so much of a diverse meta that it can kind of blow everything wide open. There's a deck for everybody out there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so it's funny you mentioned Bujin. So I actually know what they do because as a new player into the game, I took the time to watch every single like feature match from like past Yu-Gi-Oh. So like I've watched like Jeff Jones played Bujins and top with it. Like I've watched like Pat topped with Sylvans. Like I've watched like every old player that were really strong in the game, and I watched a lot of past format, and that got me to like really grow because as a new player, right? Like the first thing I also really wanted to do was grow my knowledge of the card pool, and that would help me become a better deck builder because in its essence I would understand tech cards a lot easier. Like I would understand like cards that used to be good can now still be good, right? Because that's what Konami does. Like every now and then cards that are printed as old as like Metal Raiders can like suddenly be really strong. We see a good example of that, like such as Smoke Grenade being introduced with a card that came out like I think probably 14 years ago.
Yeah, long
time ago. And it's just that and so like it's really cool you mentioned those thing that even though as a new player, I highly encourage people to watch past formats and watch those replays. Like ARG has them up, PBG tries to have them up. Like a lot of these like I guess like YouTubers or like YouTubers try to have like these old replays. I even watched one against I think Billy. Billy was playing Necros. He was playing the Necros mirror, and I got to learn how the Necros mirror worked just from that video because I saw the way Billy played. So it's just there's so much to learn. There's so much more resources now on the internet than ever, and that goes for anything. Whether that's trying to learn Yu-Gi-Oh, trying to learn how to like I don't know, like start up your own company. Like there's just so many resources out there that when you were playing in the 2005 GOAT format, I'm sure there just wasn't as many. And so it's just that if you have to like just put the time in, and it sounds really cliche, but it's not easy. But if you put the work in, like it gets a lot easier.
How much time do you invest into the game as far as like research, deck testing, and deck playing, and into your stream goes?
Right. I mean, like right now, definitely a lot more, right? But I work a 9-to-5 job, so I don't do streaming or YouTubing full time. A lot of people think I do, but I definitely put a lot of work into it. Like I try to stream every day until like maybe like midnight, and then after that, I edit my videos. I do my own editing. I make my thumbnails. And that's all stuff I learned from YouTube. Like it's crazy, but like I legit learned how to like edit videos off YouTube. Like I learned how to make thumbnails from like Photoshop tutorials. Like, and these are skills that I just developed randomly just because it's a hobby that I really like. But it makes learning not a drag when it's something that you're passionate about. And that's like goes for anything, right? Like it just makes it so much easier. So in terms of like the actual content right now, a lot of my testing or like figuring out new texts or things that I just think about at work really random, like whether I'm eating lunch. Like I remember I came up with the new Infernoble combo when the balance got dropped, and it was actually during my lunchtime, and I legit thought of the new combo in my head. Like I was just like theorizing my head because I was at work. Like I can't go on DB or anything like that, so I was thinking in my head like, what are things I can do, what are like some combos I can do, what are some of the cards in the meta that would be really good to like tech in because we got O-line banned, like things like that.
So you started a YouTube channel about roughly 7 months ago, and it's kind of really grown now as of late. So what decided for you to start going into like YouTubing and streaming?
Oh, like what was the catalyst? I think the catalyst was when I went with Sam and Trip to 3v3 Vegas because they like getting to see them was really inspiring.
Oh, I see someone's walked in there. I'll give
So,
I'll give you a moment there for a second just to deal with that there.
but yeah, so yeah. But 1 second, my bad.
Yeah, no problem, man. You got your stuff dealing with, man. No worries, no worries.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, say that again. So I forgot where I left off.
Yeah, no problem, man. We were talking about the evolution of your channel, and then you were telling me about how you went with Sam and Triff. You teamed up with them in the 3v3 Vegas, and how that kind of inspired you to get your YouTube channel going.
I was. So okay, so the catalyst I would definitely say was when I went with Sam to that 3v3 YCS event, because I got to see like a lot of like the behind the scenes of what they do. And I realized like it was very inspirational, because I was like, man, this is definitely something that I can see myself doing as well. And I've always like enjoyed doing like either deck profiles or like doing competitive content, because like, for example, like a lot of the stuff when Jesse played at the World's Playoff and he basically used Utopia Double or Nothing. It's funny because I knew about that card already. And so when he blew it up, I already had like a lot of copies of that card. And so it was just like so random, because I was like, these are things that I already saw, and he's like introducing the meta, but it was like things I already saw because I had people in my locals playing that card.
Yeah.
And it was just like really cool, where I was kind of like, wow, this is definitely something I can see myself doing, because I don't know, I do a lot of theorizing, like I do a lot of testing, and I think about these kind of things, and I figured it'd be cool to like now eternalize it by just putting it into like a YouTube video for a lot of people, because I find out that I learn a lot from a lot of YouTubers, and I figure out like what are they missing, what can I provide on top of that. And I was like, okay, maybe I can provide something more competitive than what people are already doing, just so that new players that enter the game like be a source of motivation for them to like get better, because I wanted to kind of like show that even though I am much newer to the game, like it's still very plausible to do well.
So because you're like newer to the game, how do you find yourself like the time to be able to research like so many sets and so many cards that have gone back for like, it's like 15, 16, 17 years that this game has been around?
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly really easy. I mean, all I do is go on DB, and whenever I'm looking for like a tech, I tell everyone this, like the secret. You like, let's say you're looking for a monster card and you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and it has to meet certain criteria. All I do is I just filter it by those criteria. So like if I'm looking for a equip spell, I filter it by equip spell, and I type in the description on Dueling Book what I want it to do. So if I'm looking for a reborn card, like cards that pull up would be like DDR, right? Like special summoned. Cards like Living Fossil shows up. Like, and these were cards that were historically played in Isolde decks, but it was cards that I never knew. Like DDR were cards like Different Dimension Return. I didn't know about that card. I didn't know about Living Fossil, but it was cards that all I had to do was just go up and look up relevant equip spells that I want to put in for Isolde. Like cards that if I were to hard draw, they're actually not as bad. And that's how I approach all my deck building, right? Like when I was building Prank Kids for the new Meow Meow Link 1 that's coming out, I saw Thunder Dragon Fusion, because I remember playing in Thunder Dragon format that says Fusion Summon from your extra deck, a Thunder monster. I saw Butler was a Thunder monster, and I was like, oh wait, you can actually recycle your Prank Kids using this card, and it's a way to play past a Nibiru, which is like really, really nice. And so that's like, it's just basically like I just have like really weird, I guess, photographic memory. Like I remember a lot of card text really well. And so like when I see a card once, I like internalize it. And if I see it being good in a specific situation again, then I would play it. Or like I would put it in and slide it into the deck.
No, now you've said that you're fairly innovative, and you try to be that way, at least when you do your deck building. Do you believe that that's a big factor in you and being able to go back and search for tech, because you're trying to conjugate so many ideas, and then when you kind of research these cards, these techs come up, as opposed to, let's say, like maybe like a cookie cutter player who just just net decks and just goes with it, rather as opposed to yourself?
Yeah, like I mean, I always tell everyone this, like there's nothing wrong with net decking, because everyone starts off somewhere, right? We all need a skeleton. But the thing with net decking where it gets quote unquote bad, in my opinion, is when you just copy someone's deck, but you don't even know how to play it, or you don't try to learn the ins and outs of how those decks work. That's why I think when people post like deck profiles, right, I find those deck profiles not being helpful if you don't explain like the cards and what their purpose like serve. Like if I just like do a deck profile, I'm like, yeah, I play three Neospace, 2 Dolphin, I play triple red layer, and I just like name cards. Like those, like that isn't value add. Like value add is when you do the deck profile, or when someone net decks you and they actually know your deck almost as well as you do, because you're never going to know as much as well as the person who built the deck, but they know it like very close to how you do. And I think that's like fine. But where it gets like, I think you can take it to the next level is when you take someone's deck and you deconstruct it. A good example with this was, like I said, I watch a lot of old videos. Cody Angeloff, right? He played Dark Warrior Synchro this past format, or like I think in 2019. And he even said in his deck profile, I saw Sam's video, but he was playing all this weird stuff and he ended on a cool board, but it wasn't as good. So I took his deck list and I made it my own, and I changed so many cards about it, and then I made it better, and he got 5th place at the regional. And it's like those same things that you do, where like you look at people, and you're open-minded. You don't take it for gospel, right? Like you look at it and you're like, okay, this is really good. What are some things that are wrong with it? What are some things I can change? How do I make it my own? And you'll be surprised how like a combo deck can suddenly turn into a mid-range deck in like a few cards, right? Like for example, in Prank Kids, you can make it like, like super gung-ho, and on like 3, 7, like 8 negates. But you can also play a different way, which is like to play more mid-range, like ending on like a less conservative board, but making it more, but making it better in like the grind game. Like you're not trying to win in one turn. You're trying to slowly like chip at your opponent's resources, right? And like there's just so many ways to like play a deck, and you're changing like 4 or 5 cards.
Yeah, and this we do see a lot of that nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh, where a lot of people are just trying to put like everything out on the table, and if it gets broken, there's not a whole lot to go around after your full board has been out, because people expect the game to be done in the first 2-3 turns, as most games do. But I don't think that one criticism I always have with a lot of like the newer players, like when they play this game, is that they don't really know how to grind in the game very well, because they expect the game to be done in several turns. So when it actually has to go to a grind, there's a lot of inexperience that happens. And one drill I give people to do is like, play some structure decks against each other, or play like some like remedial decks, and learn how to play the game for more than one turn, because that really is a skill that you really need to develop in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then you find me doing a lot of like the really cool next level plays is when they actually enter turn 3 and turn 4. Those are the games I actually really enjoy, and that's what I really like about Infernobles. Like, I mean, yes, don't get me wrong, turn 1 I generally win most of the time, but if they somehow break the board and we enter like a really cool grind state, right? Like you see cards like DDR being able to like you see the utility of like Phoenix Blade being able to banish my Gearfried or banish my Charles and bringing it back with like DDR to like put a lot of insane pressure. Like you see follow plays, you see ways to like break the board, and like that's like basically like, I guess that's like the difference between a good and a bad player, because a lot of like bad players, they just like think, oh man, I make my board, if they can't beat it, I win. If they break it, I lose. But it's not always the case. Like you can have your board broken. I've gotten dark rooted evenly playing Infernobles, and I still won the game. And just like due to like pushing back with my opponent and like back and forth. But those are the games that I really enjoyed, to be honest.
Yeah, I really love the grind games, because it gets really intense. I find being able to just kind of go back and forth with your opponent, because I played a lot of chess when I was back in high school and elementary school, so I love that back and forth like grind. And also I'm a big football fan too, which I pretty much call athletic chess in a sense. So I love that interaction that you have with your opponent, and just like having like a good battle of wits. So I really enjoy that kind of grind game as well, and that's one of the biggest things I love about playing this game.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, man. So I've seen you rub elbows a lot with a lot of the big players out there. Just for example, like you're teamed up with Triff and Sam of the YCS Vegas. How did that come about?
Oh yeah, so I just honestly like shoot my shot. Basically, I applied when Sam was doing a huge giveaway for it, and I just kind of entered on a whim. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna at least try and see. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, it's like no harsh feelings. And so I just kind of applied for it, and then it just really worked out. Like I got accepted, and then they flew me out, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we didn't really like play test or anything like that at all. It was, I think we were just like confident in our decks. We knew how it functioned. We understood the meta. And I think that's why we did really well. At Vegas, I think day one, we were undefeated for 6 rounds in a row. We only lost in the last round of day one, which makes us like have a really high tiebreaker. And then in day two, which was 2 rounds, we won round 8. And then round 9, we lost. And we got really unfortunate because we got 17th just due to unlucky tiebreakers. But I really felt that we were playing like insane. I played 3 Worlds competitor that event.
Ooh, big.
Which is like huge for me because, I mean, I'll be honest. I actually didn't even know they were Worlds competitors when I was playing them. So that's why I was like, yeah, like I said, I don't get the nerves because I'm like, I honestly don't know who I'm playing. Obviously, I know who they all are now. But like at the time, I had no idea who I was playing as. I'm like, oh, cool. This is like Ryan Levine. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Just another guy. I'll just play him. And it's because like I just didn't know like the Yu-Gi-Oh scene that well at the time. So right, like because at that time I was only playing for I think like 6 months or something like that. So like I was barely a year in. I like didn't know like the quote unquote pro players or anything like that.
It sometimes it's kind of nice not knowing that situation because it won't affect you psychologically as opposed to thinking, oh my god, I'm playing this guy. Like it might like mess you up. Even though I know you said that you're relatively calm and like names don't really like, bother you anymore. Or even at all for that matter, just because of the game. But at least that's kind of like one benefit to at least being like a newer to the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree with that.
So since that event, like that's when your YouTube channel started like firing off huge now. Like you put like video after video of like nonstop pretty much since that happened, you know. So so what happens on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so after that event, I think I started my YouTube channel. I feel like in April, but at that time I only posted 1 or 2 videos a week. Like it wasn't as consistent. I think it was in May where I really started posting more consistently. If in terms of like what I put on my channel is like, so I try to be as value add as possible with content. I don't want people to like watch a video and then gain nothing out of it. And I think like people on my stream and like on the comments, they generally like attest to that. You know, when they attend the stream or something, they at least like walk away with something, like one thing that they learned. And I really like that because it makes it so that their time isn't wasted, and it shows that I value their time for all the people that watch the videos. And so yeah, that's like pretty much like my thoughts on it. But in terms of like the actual content itself, I start off with, I generally have a like couple things. Hold on, let me think. I'm trying to like break it down into like categories.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I have like the Learning to Losser series. So that was something that I started off with. Basically, I would invite like a lot of well-known players, and I try to have them either walk through a deck with me, make the deck better, and then we just talk theory on like the card choices, the numbers, and then walk through their process about how they would go through like optimizing this X list. The next thing is and then a bunch. So like for example, I would make like a side decking video because that's a topic that I remember when I was playing the game. Not many people had good videos on it. Like I actually didn't find any video on side decking. I kind of just threw in 15 random cards that I thought were okay, and that was it. But I made a video on that topic because I think it's very systematic approach to siding. Like you want to have X and Y cards. Like you want to know exactly what you take in and out for every matchup. That just saves you time, so you don't go into time because of time rules. It makes it so your list is optimized because you don't want to be taking out your whole engine and then just, if you can see your whole entire side card, but if you can't play, then what's the point? And then the other things that I try to do is like generally like deck profiles, but deck profiles for things that aren't already out. So like I try to like put out like deck profiles that like people don't really have out, or like my list is like very different. So for example, Dragon Maids, like people were playing Dragon Maids with the Dragon Link deck, right? But I took a whole different approach and I played a very peered list. Like I played the control variant of Dragon Maids, like using just the in-engine archetype to like win games. And that's something that people wasn't really seeing at the time. Like people were just kind of like, you know, putting it in Dragon Link and go brr. And I'm just like, man, I feel like this has so much more utility than that. Other examples would be like Infernobles, like because there was no Infernoble deck out at the time. or even Ellic was a good example, right? Like everyone, when Ellic first came out, everyone said it was trash. But I remember that if you can like fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure I was the first YouTuber to make a video on Ellic, and that's actually how my channel grew. If you look, you check the progression of my YouTube, it was like a couple of videos, but my first thing that really took off was Ellic. Like I looked into Ellic when everyone said that deck wasn't good, and then I looked into Invoked Ellic, which was then like one of the best decks at the time. I looked into Evil Eye Ellic, like, and it was that idea of like being very open minded and flexible, where I was able to look at a bunch of different engines to complement a deck that everyone said wasn't good. It was the same thing with Adamant Barriers. I didn't actually build the Adamant Barrier deck at all, so I can't. It was Cody who did, but like everyone said Adamant Barriers was trash, but like no one actually tested the deck. And like that's why when Cody played the first PPG event where that set was legal, he won with it because everyone said it was bad, but it turned out to be like absolutely insane. But yeah, it's just that's like what I typically try to do, like combo videos, like where I like try to break decks. But yeah.
And I see you also do. You've also done a couple like podcasts, kind of not like similar to my own because I'm solely dedicated to podcasts. But you've also had a couple where you've had some guests on as well, and you've talked with them. Like for like Nim, for example, you've had him on, and I know you've had another guest or two on. So that's also something that goes on your YouTube channel.
Yeah. So I was gonna mention that too, because that's like something in like another project that I'm taking with head-to-head battles, where we kind of like talk about the TCG space. So it was not like dedicated to just purely Yu-Gi-Oh, even though we are Yu-Gi-Oh channels. It's kind of more like exploring what other TCGs has to like offer, and then kind of like seeing the differences and the similarities between them. I think that's really nice. But I mean that is like a free-flowing podcast, and like we kind of like just talk about like so much. And I like that because I mean I like talking. We're doing a podcast right now, and that's like fun.
Yeah, that's also one other thing I love about doing these kinds of things, because it really like helps you dissect not only like the person's thoughts when it comes to the game, but I really love like diving deep into the actual person I'm talking to as well, because you know it's a Chinese proverb is what they say is like before you like learn your enemy, you have to learn like before you learn to fight an enemy, you have to learn why they fight. And that's kind of similar to what we do here for Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, it's like kind of like where they come from, like learn their style, and then you can kind of learn like why they have that reasoning behind it. Like for example, why do like I have a lot of local players that play these budget decks with like these really like low end rogue decks, and why is it? Because like maybe like they grew up because they didn't have a lot of money, they maybe still don't have a lot of money, or like they're in high school. That's like they have to play because that's all they have to play with. It's just like that for as like a prime example. For instance, and that's it's kind of like why I love doing these kind of podcasts. It just really lets you dive deep, and like I've learned about so many things that I never thought I would ever learn just by having these kind of conversations with every single podcast I have, and this is going to pretty much include you as well as we go along with this.
I definitely appreciate it. And yeah, like I mean that's the cool thing about it. Like I try to like make budget variants or like budget variants of like decks. I know like the financial cost is like a real thing, and yeah, I mean, I try to like, I guess, like I said, like adding value is like my biggest thing. At the same time, like there are other content creators that can like, if you want a good laugh, you can go to them. I think the YouTubing space is like really nice because there's someone for everyone. And I think that, like what I'm trying to accomplish is that if I can show up at a event and someone is like, yo, I won with your deck, or I won with the theories you were talking about, or I won because of this video, or you inspired me to do this, and this, then I felt like I accomplished like everything I really wanted.
And I hear you on that one, because like I'm starting now to like get a little bit more like compliments from like random people I've never heard of before. Like just today or yesterday rather, I just got somebody just messaged me and just saying how they like really appreciated my content, and I'm sure that you get the same as well. So it's really a rewarding feeling when you know that people are actually out there like watching your content and getting something positive out of all of this, because like each one of us has something different to deliver to the table. Like for instance, for you, you're a newer player, you're going to offer like a new perspective on like how to really approach the game, and kind of like provide an inspiration for players who maybe aren't good at the game or just relatively new to the game, that know that they can have like the kind of success that you have when they get into it. And then people like who like watching my podcast, for example, they can, kind of maybe start their own thing and kind of maybe start to dissect and learn from other people and just, find out things about other people they've never heard of before. I mean, that's kind of the point of why I have this podcast, is to really like look at everything from every single different perspective from everybody. It doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. I just want to hear them and kind of give them a platform on, how did they make their rise to stardom? How did they progress through the game? And I think it's really important that like we all know like the Yu-Gi-Oh history behind it, because it really helps us out like later on if we want to get better.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is really cool. Because I think like when I like look back to like my old videos, I'm like, wow, like it's like a game, it's like a video game. You just keep leveling up, and you just want to, but you want to always make sure you're always leveling up. That's like the goal, right? Like that you're constantly progressing.
Yeah, it definitely is, and especially when a lot of us are kind of getting older and we have more responsibilities. We might have to commit more to work now. Like so. I'm sure there's a good chunk of us that have like finished like college or whatever trade school we have to, just like you and myself. I'm pretty sure you've graduated. Yes. Just before I go on here.
Yeah. No, I have.
Yeah. So exactly like that. Like, so it gets a little bit harder for us to be able to find time where it's so for Yu-Gi-Oh. So it's nice that we can have like these resources available to us that we can keep up with the game, maybe with a little bit less time, but still with the same amount of impact as we did before. And we had a lot more time back then, is to have all these resources available now.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's been really beneficial in my mind, and I kind of love the perspective that you're taking, because when Cody told me about you and like how like successful you've been in this game with the small amount of time that you've had being able to play it, it really like took me away, because like I've played this game since 2013 and I only have one YCS top to my name, so there's definitely like stuff for me to improve on, whatnot, and I'm sure that eventually if I give myself the time to like really dissect it, I can maybe figure it out. But as far as I'm concerned, like just seeing you go through this is pretty inspiring, and I hope this kind of helps keep the game going. Know that when people like follow you, they know, yep, yeah, like I know I can be as good as Pac one day, and like with how quickly he's done, and like I can't wait to actually play you sometime in the near future.
Yeah,
we get a game going on just to kind of see our skill levels between each other, because I believe that I'm a pretty solid player. I wouldn't put myself like the best of the best, but I maybe put myself maybe like a level or two just below it, like enough to at least like compete really well and give anybody a good game.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, we definitely should play, and yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that, man.
Yeah, of course, man. So and of course, like you also do like Twitch streaming as well, as we're on right now. Hello, everybody on Twitch, by the way. So what do you do here when you're streaming on Twitch?
Yeah, so on Twitch, like the goal is to, well, it depends on like really the type of day. I was watching like Farfa, your podcast Farfa, and Farfa's like, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. I kind of just do, and I'm like, I mean, I guess for me, I guess like for example, today's stream would be recording the podcast, or for people who wanted to like hear it before everyone else, or the behind the scenes, they can get that. And then the second thing is to look at new cards and then figure out what we can do with them. Or generally what I try to do is I play test the deck that I would put out on YouTube later. And so people get like the behind the scenes, like the actual testing before I make the video itself. So, and that's key, because I want people to realize that when I put out these videos, it's not like some scuff. Like I just like, like I don't put videos out to just put it. Like I do it just because I want to make sure I put in the time, the effort, and actually tested it and look at like the different possibilities and the theories surrounding it before I just put things out, because like I don't want to just put out scuff content for people just for the sake of putting out content. And that's my, like, that's why I do it on Twitch. And also because for people, for somehow they will be making like crazy claims, as like they'll be like, yo, Pat copied this combo from some. I'm like, bro, I literally have a Twitch bot. You can go watch it. I literally did this live on stream. And the other cool thing that I want to show is that like a lot of these things, or I think about, are done right on stream, so people can see like the thought process behind like how did I come up with the Infernoble combo? How did I build like the Generator Numeron deck? Like they get to see everything like behind the scenes and like the thought process, so maybe they can take some inspiration from that and then apply that to their own deck building when they see the way I build or go about decks.
Yeah, because like especially since like you're, again, I keep referring to you being a newer player, but you awfully definitely offer a new perspective to other players that you're kind of playing. I don't want to, not ignorance is not the right word, but like maybe like a dearth of like temporary knowledge that you can kind of look at it from like kind of like tabula rasa, like a clean slate, rather than coming in with like a preconceived notion that you can look at it from every single angle possible, even if the ideas are completely ridiculous and terrible. But that's what exploring is. That's what you do, and then you can like kind of dumb it down and narrow it down, so you can really truly get to like one or two like unbiased decisions about the way you go about your deck, which I think is actually like a kind of like a unique thing that you can have compared to like a lot of the more legacy players like myself that have been around the game for quite some time. Because I definitely will say that you're a little bit more open-minded than I am in this case, even though I'd like to say I'm open-minded.
Yeah, like that's why like I would like when I get like I don't get tilted, but like the things I get tilted on is like sometimes the YouTube video comments are like absurd. They'll be like saying stuff like, "Yo, Pat, you're playing a suboptimal build. This is the correct number." I'm just like looking like, yo, this is why you'll never get better at the game. It's because you only play one deck and you only play like X things you know. Where like and that's like the issue with like I guess like the culture surrounding this game. It's kind of like you have to play things a certain way. Like, yo, if you deviate even a little, like you're considered bad or like you're considered X, Y, and Z. And it's like nah, man. Like that's why the card pool is so vast. That's why like there are people playing with cards that like don't exist. Like I'll give the good example about like Cody actually when he played that like the Dark Warrior Synchro deck all the way at Atlanta Regional in 2019. I think in March maybe. I think Blair Hunter won that event, but like he was like playing cards that people didn't even like. He was playing Metal Marcher. People didn't know what Metal Marcher did until this year. But like he already knew about cards like Metal Marcher, right? Like for Fiber, or like he already knew about like Cyber's Integrator, or like and it's because he's like open minded and have tested and play other decks that like he's getting good and better at the game. Like that's why like I think like it's so important just to like not be stuck to just one school of thought. Like I think sometimes like I mean sometimes there are like quote unquote absolute like for example, right? Like sometimes you have to play through this card, right? It's just so broken. Like why would you not? Like, but like other times it's kind of like I think there's room for like testing and figuring out the ratios and running the math and like you know figuring out X, Y, and Z, and that's where like I find out I have a lot of fun. It's because no two decks are ever the same. Like you'll never catch me playing the same deck as someone else card for card. It's because I always like try to like make my own. Nothing wrong with it though. There's nothing that, and I always tell people there's nothing wrong with neck decking because there are some people in the game that are like better. Like some of the I know like really good players that like don't know how to deck build. Like, but they're insane. They have like insane YCS tops like back to their name. But like they just don't know how to build decks. They just have people that are really good at deck building. They give them the deck and then just all they do is just play it and then they just top. And that's fine too. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with deck building. Or like net decking.
Yeah, I feel like the net decking is maybe like it's a short-term solution, or it's just people who are really good for like people just don't know how to play decks. Like build decks as you said. But I definitely agree that there's merits to being a little bit innovative and try to kind of catch your opponents a little bit off guard with these kind of different builds. I have like two quick anecdotes I'll give you real quick. When Dragon Rulers were around and Bujins were around as well, the babies were banned at that point. I started running Scapegoat in my build, in my Dragon Ruler build, because I mean Dragon Rulers like don't open like the greatest kind of thing. It's just maybe it's like a Draco Sacker, and that's about it. So Scapegoat's a really good way to open up, and it also allowed me to utilize Formula Synchron, and then I could make a level 10 synchro for like Ally of Justice Decisive Armor, which is like an absolute killer for Bujins, because you rip so many cards out of their hand that are light monsters and inflict damage on. You can OTK them like on the quick turn. That helped me win me a regionals. And then another regionals I played where I played like going second, True Draco Invoked. I made triple evenly matches, and I also played Instant Fusion because Thousand Eyes Restrict and Millennium Eyes Restrict were such great like first or second turn cards that
those cards are crazy.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And then they're also tribute fodder for your True Dracos as well, so you don't have to like sacrifice one of your spell trap cards if you don't need to, and you have a monster for a Masterpiece because that was around that time. So I really think that there's definitely some innovation. Some merit for having some innovation in there. And there's again nothing wrong with net decking, but there are definitely pros and cons to depending on what your play style is and how you are as a deck builder. Because deck building is most of the game as well as far as game.
Yeah, cause so the way I look at it is like I think this is definitely inspired by like Hani as well as like Jesse and like other good players is that I see that like the people who are like the like I think the
Mhm.
best of the best, like for example, we have like Jesse, Cody, like Hani, like they're really strong deck
Mhm.
builders and players. And that's why I don't want to just be like a deck builder. I also want to be a player. And the same I don't want to just be a player. I also want to be a deck builder. Like I want to like get good at both. And that's why like I like try to that's why like the YouTube also helps is because I'm not only doing this just for like content, it's like I'm also like slowly improving, progressing every time I make a video and talk to like good players and things like that. Like
No,
I'm
so
slowly getting better every single time too, and you see that
mhm.
progress like from
Yeah,
even like
because like
yeah
there's so
from the
much like
equipment perspective and everything
trains
else. So
trains of
yeah.
thought with going into deck building and even side deck. Like for example, I had Yassine Saleh on my podcast not too long ago, and we talked about side decking. And I typically said that like it's evolved to a
Nice.
point where like I would almost never side into trap cards if I knew I was going to go second, unless I had utility on them first turn. And then he told me when he played Sour Dragons, he would side in deck devastation if I was going second because he would make Chiromantic Over Dragon or Fortress Dragon and then have the deck dev ready to go for next turn because it can be utilized in that turn. And then he has a whole bunch of traps to back him up afterwards because the monsters, for example, like are big board breakers themselves. So like you can definitely get like a
Yeah.
whole series of perspectives on being able to deck build because again like people don't realize that like it's a major part of the game and like as good as you are like if your deck is just terrible like you can get beat by like even like the lowest of the low if you can't have a good deck.
Yeah, because the thing too that's really important to know is that like you're not always gonna get access to the like the best deck builders, right? If you're just a good player, right? Like you're not getting access to all the best deck builders in the world all the time, right? Because to be quite frank, they don't really share their lists except with their friends.
Yeah.
So like you're not gonna have like a Jesse just sending you a list for free or like I mean obviously he's like starting his Patreon now, so he'll help you like make XYZ lists. I'm sure when events open up, I'm curious how that would go, but like a lot of it now is like these people aren't always going to send you, so like you're gonna have to rely on like yourself and like YouTube and whatever resources you have to make the best deck possible to like win the event, right? And I it's unironically I kind of was like already doing it unintentionally when I first started playing like in Orlando for PPG, for example, right? I was doing something that no one was actually doing at the time, and that was like maining evening match in Altergeist. Like because I just had like this thought in my head like, oh, like this if I can bait out one negate such as like Extrav or like duality or whatever, right? Like I can evenly match and then it cracks their whole board and it has synergy with like multi-figure even though it was at one. Like but it was just because I was and you'll see that it actually on my deck list when I wrote it out. I actually had it in the side originally, but I was crossing it in and out. Like trying to like figure out what I wanted to do. But it's just like those types of things that like help you either win the event or you can also lose the event. I could have also just lost with that, to be honest. So um but I
Yeah,
lost
I mean
every
that
dice
was the
roll that
same thing
event, so
with
it
me
turns out
when I was
evenly
running
matched main
like
deck
my
was
True
kind of
Draco
nice.
Invoked. I main triple even a match, and this was like when Pendulums were like one of the biggest decks at that point in time with like Oddeyes Vortex Dragon. Like I knew that they were going to put down a bunch of negates. I didn't care. I didn't run any. I think I ran Ash Blossoms the only hand trap, but other than that, I would let
Yeah.
them go free range at whatever they want. I didn't even play Ash Blossom first turn. Let them have their board, and then let me break it. The great deck at being able to break boards, and then playing
Yeah.
Invocation on top of that really like puts your own floodgate on the board, and then you have an Ash Blossom back in behind it, really puts your opponent in like a really hurting position. And that was like my philosophy when I ran it, when I did that. So it's kind of like similar to
Yeah.
when you ran like your altar guys with triple even the match, because if it's like let's say if you go first, whatever, you have a whole other plethora of cards to be able to help you out because that's what altar dice do. Like they're built on gathering resources and being able to like out resource your opponent and control them down and not let them play. So you don't mind if you like have or like neg one if you have control over the entire board. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. 100%. Yeah. No, I like that, man. I think Yu-Gi-Oh has so many paths that you can take it. So I mean, it's just I even said this on like Cody had a podcast that he had not a podcast but a series that I did with him recently, and we were talking. I was like, at the end, like you gotta,
Mhm.
like I feel like the road to being a good player is you gotta be calm. You gotta yeah, you
Mhm.
gotta be calm. You gotta be open minded, and
Definitely that
I feel
too,
like those are
because
like the two biggest
you know,
things.
I've been on tilt many times when I go play big events, just after like a harsh loss or anything like that, and just keeping yourself like mentally in the game, and also like you're keeping your hunger
Yeah.
levels in check, because that's also a big thing too. I've had people quit.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's why like when Cody and I were talking, we were like, "Yo, like real events are like so much harder than online because like online events, like I'm literally in my like you're in a gaming chair, you're laid all the way back like this, and then like
Mhm.
you're just super chilling. You can get a food, you can get snacks, but at a YCS or like anywhere else, you're actually starving for like 10 rounds. So it's just like
Mhm.
it's like you there's like what the law of
Mhm.
diminishing returns, right? The more rounds you play without food or like you're just exhausted, the worse you just like the worse you play. And but that's why like keeping a strong mental just helps
Mhm.
because like you don't want the like
Yeah.
those are real factors that can determine whether or not you misplay, right? So you just want to
Yeah, because I've had people
you
who've
want to like
had
train
like
yourself
winning or decent
for
records, like
those
in
things.
regionals or higher, that have just like outright quit just because like they're really hungry and like, okay, I want to go eat food now. I don't care about this anymore. And like it just takes away like their mental state is gone because they're so hungry. They're just thinking about the
Yeah.
short term thing, that they're not thinking about, you know, the long term with playing Yu-Gi-Oh and being able to like win an event or something like that. So that's definitely a big thing that you gotta like keep yourself healthy on, is the mental and
Right.
psychological aspect of the game, which I believe is like so incredibly important in this game. Like you can be as skilled as all you want, but nobody will top a YCS if they quit after round five. Yes. So
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
can 100% agree on
stamina is
that one for
huge.
sure. Like that's
Having
why
good
every
stamina
time
is
now I go
huge.
to like
Yeah.
a big event or something like that, I'm always packing like a snack or a drink like in my bag, just so I can, you know, like maybe not die throughout the regionals, because I'm a pretty heavy eater myself. So I love to make sure that I'm pretty well satiated throughout the entire time
Yeah.
when I'm at a Yu-Gi-Oh event.
Yeah.
And of course, that's also like the biggest thing I love about going on
Yeah,
like traveling for
100%.
Yu-Gi-Oh events is being able to have like a great meal at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, it's super rewarding. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
it's two type of feelings. Either you earned it, because you're like, dang man, this is like so rewarding, or you're like trying to soak up a huge
Yeah.
you like scrub out. So you're like, man, I also need this.
Yeah,
It's like
it's definitely like
it's two ways,
to
but
improve your
I
mood
mean either or, it's
nonetheless.
still a good time. So
So when this pandemic is, whenever it's going to end,
yeah.
no one knows it's going to end. Will we start seeing you like playing in like bigger events, you know, like for like YCSs and whatnot as we move forward?
Yeah, all
Nice.
of them, every single one. Yeah, every single one. Yeah, I already Yeah, because I want to make this new like series. I guess I'll spoil it here. I mean, I told some of the Twitch chat already, but I want to do a thing where
Yep.
so like Pat wrote like the book Road of the King, right? So I wanted to do something similar where it will be like, I guess the series could be called Road of the King. I haven't really
Mhm.
thought on the name yet, but the whole idea is that the goal is to go to Worlds. So I'll be making like a YouTube vlog series similar to like
Mhm.
Gage's or Nimnim's sealed only challenge. Basically like I'll be doing something similar, like in terms of like the quality of the footage and all that good stuff, but I'll be doing it where I show my progression from, going to the first event,
Mhm.
grinding for worlds points, and then hopefully the end of this series will be going to worlds, and of course like the next will be at playing at worlds. But yeah, my next
Yeah, man.
goal is to
So,
like, if events open up, I want to grind for
so how
worlds
are you gonna
points
be
and
able
then
to
play at worlds.
like plan yourself like financially and like and like get like transportation and whatnot to be able to get yourself around to all of these
Mm,
events to kind of like qualify for these world points, because it's a huge grind in itself.
yeah. It is, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I do a lot of vending still. So I mean, if you
Mhm.
do swaps at like, especially international ones, you literally make your flight back times two. So like I mean, you can just like
Mhm.
plus off like buying selling cards to help you cover the cost of everything. So that's my goal. Yeah, I think it's very sustainable. Maybe
Mhm.
I'll probably talk
Were
about
you
that in the
trying to
series
do
too,
that
about how like I
earlier
make
in
it
the
all
year before the
sustainable.
whole pandemic thing happened? Is try to go for that world's points grind?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I was going to like go to YCS Charlotte in North Carolina. and I was gonna go to YCS Hartford. I was going to all of them, so obviously they got canceled. So I couldn't. But yeah, that was the goal. My first one was gonna be the recording, the VOD of
And
YCS Charlotte. That
let's
was
say
gonna be
you
the
got
first
to go to
episode.
Worlds. What would be like your ideal like country to go to if you got to go to Worlds? 100%.
Oh my goodness, yo, it has to be Japan. It has to be Japan, bro. Yeah, where it all
Yep.
started, it has to be Japan. I watched Sam's Japan VOD
Yeah. Oh my
vlog when he
God. Like
went.
I
Oh
I
my
did talk to
goodness,
him
yo, that
about
was
that, and
nuts.
I've talked to Jesse
That
several
was
times
nuts.
about it too, about their experience and going to Worlds. Man, it's
Yeah.
such a treat to be able to do that kind of thing, and so few duelists get to be able to have that experience, man. So I'll be vouching
Yeah.
for you to see if you can rep North America for us if
Yeah.
and when it happens.
I hope. I mean, yeah, I hope. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best. That's the thing. I'll definitely be trying my best. If it doesn't happen, like I can at least gain comfort that I've
Mhm.
tried and put in the work and hours like as best as I could. And then I also
Yeah.
like to cover the call. Yeah, you're gonna come to European YCS. Sorry, someone in the chat just asked me. Yeah, of course, yes, of course, yes. And the reason being that I
Mhm.
already travel a lot for like
Can I ask
work,
what you
and
do
so
for
it
a
would
living?
just like complement that really well too. So be perfect.
What
Yeah,
would you
I
go
work
to
in
college for?
finance, in like the healthcare
Oh,
industry.
okay. How long was that program for?
Finance and accounting.
Oh
I
yeah.
studied both,
When did
double
you
major.
graduate?
4
Last.
years. Last year, I literally graduated and played Yu-Gi-Oh. But I'm working, so
Yeah.
like I said, this is like part time for me,
Yeah,
or like it's
yeah.
a
I mean,
hobby. Like
you
I do this
graduated the
on the
same year
side.
I did,
I
even
still
though I'm
work
like
like
several
9 to
years
5
older than you.
every
I'm like
day.
I'm 33 now, but we graduated the same year, and I'm pretty much like working like two jobs now, working on my career, and then not counting this podcast and everything
Nice.
like that. So I get what you're saying, man. I'm just glad that we're able to like
Yeah.
balance out like our social lives, our work life, and then being able to integrate like Yu-Gi-Oh with several other hobbies. I'm sure that you probably have on top of this.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's a grind, right? Like you can't do it this long or stay this long
Yeah, it
in like the
definitely is.
game or the YouTubing scene if you don't like it. That's the biggest thing. Like it's you see, yeah, because you see so many people like transition in and out. Like they make 1 or 2 videos, they
Yeah.
quit. But like if that was the case, like I remember my first Twitch stream was like 10 viewers, right? And obviously like now we're like growing a lot more. Like thanks to everyone. But it's if you were motivated by those numbers and stuff,
Yeah,
then a
it's
lot of
really
people wouldn't
difficult to
quit. Like
become like
it
really
would a
big
lot
into like
earlier,
the
you know.
YouTubing or
So
like Twitch streaming if you're just kind of doing it like part time or just kind of like not really putting like the effort into it because there are so many other like really quality people out there that really put like their heart and like soul into their channels and Twitch streams that really help them like put them over the top. So it's definitely not something that you can just kind of do casually and expect to be successful. I mean, we have like how many people in the world have tried to do this like casual YouTube and like I've seen like very little success. It doesn't happen.
mhm.
It's very rare that this happens.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I want to say shout out to I guess like all the people watching on the stream, and then shout out to just
Yeah,
I don't know,
and
just
definitely
all the
that, man. And
supporters. It's been immense.
it's
I
nice
can't
that
thank
you
them
can
enough.
get this kind of support and knowing like when I first put on my Facebook saying that you were going to be like the next guest or at least hint that you were going to be the next guest, everybody like instantly knew. It's like, oh yeah, it's Pac's going to be on it. Like, oh my god, we're so excited, Pac is going to be on. So I had a lot of people who were like
Oh,
really
really?
positive that you were
No
going to
way.
come on to
Yeah.
line, and I'm like knowing like, wow, like
Yeah.
you have just over like 8,200 subscribers, but yet a lot of people on my Facebook know exactly who you are, exactly like who've like watched your stuff. So it's like, wow, this is actually pretty cool to see that like people are actually excited to watch this. So I'm hoping everyone around
Yeah.
here enjoys, at least on your Twitch stream, and whoever watches this are enjoying this as we go along here because it's supposed to be a different approach from like what a lot of people do. And for you doing, that's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to bring to the table is like a full-fledged journalist, a real journalist, because that's what
Mhm.
I went to school for. Like I went philosophy and journalism, and actually bringing like a real legit like podcast to this as well. So that's what I'm trying to do. So like we all have like our own little form of legitimacy, and then like for you, for example, your hook is like you're the the newer player coming into the game and just learning so quickly and looking at it from a completely different perspective of what like you couldn't get from like the seasoned veterans could give you. And it can be a blessing, it can be a curse, but it's definitely different and cool like perspective from your end, being able to watch all that unfold on your end. Yeah, it definitely is, man. I'm really glad that you were able to join me on this podcast, man. I really appreciate you taking out the time. Of course, man. So we're just kind of nearing the end now. So any shout outs you want to give to anybody while we're on here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out to obviously Cody for I guess letting you know about me. Shout out to Luxury Gaming, my team. I mean, yeah, and that's pretty much it. Just check out if you want to see more of me, just check out my YouTube and Twitch in the link in the description box.
I'll put the Twitch and your YouTube links in below in the YouTube description. When it comes on, it'll probably come on later tonight. But again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Pac. And again, congratulations on winning the New York Comic-Con that happened on Sunday. Hopefully you get to show off that nice Egyptian God slime card whenever you get it. And then hopefully, sometime in the future, I could do some kind of collaboration with you and maybe get a duel in with you sometime. Beautiful. Thanks so much, man. That is
of course. No, I would love to. That'll be awesome.
One of the most up and coming Yu-Gi tubers and Twitch streamers here on the Yu-Gi-Oh scene. He has over 82,000 YouTube subscribers, or 8,200, and 3,800 Twitch followers. The recent New York Comic-Con champion on Sunday. Also, the first place at the Pro Play Tour in Orlando with Altergeist. Pac, thank you so much for coming on. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more information, check out the Gate Expectations podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, and Spotify.